All right, so today we're going to show you how we install our bug screens on the Sprinter vans. The side door, it is the most difficult and it takes kind of the most amount of time. So first of all, I'm just going to break down the tools that we use when we're doing the install. A couple of the tools that you're going to want to make the install a little bit easier is a couple of these kind of clamps. So there's these two bigger ones, and they came in a set with some of the smaller ones. I primarily use the big ones, but we'll see how this install goes because everyone's a little bit different. Then I like to have a set of needle nose pliers, and this is for the fabric clips that we use to get the screen in place. Then I've got a utility knife with some fresh blades. You want them nice and sharp. And as well, I've got a drill driver with a Phillips bit in it as well. There's a hammer. And this just kind of helps like tap on the fabric clips. 10mm socket. So this is also not required, but I'll show you we have a step kind of near the end that just makes sure the screen stays in place. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one of my big clips and I'm going to get the perimeter piece. So I'm going to get the perimeter piece and kind of get it in the proper orientation. So remember I said that this piece of branding, our company logo, goes at the back. And I'm going to come up to this corner up here. So I'm up in this corner here. And what I'm going to do is just kind of roughly line it up with some slack and just kind of clip it in place. So yeah, I'm just going to clip it in place, just kind of roughly in the corner. Boom, just like that. Just kind of clip it over top and make sure that the side piece is dangling down far enough that it's touching the step. You want to have enough slack here that it's touching the step. I have this red stitch line here, right? So this red stitch line, when you pull off the weather stripping, so if you just sort of stick your fingers in the weather stripping and pull, you'll be able to just pull this off. And this metal flange right here is where we're going to line up that red stitching. So you can see it's going to line up on the flange just like that. And then I'm going to put fabric clips over top of that. So the first thing I like to do is just to get the weather stripping kind of out of the way here. Just pull it maybe like 3 inches past the bottom. And then you want to make sure that when you're working with this, you're keeping enough material at the bottom here. It's easy as you start to do it, you start pulling it up. So one thing I like to do here is I actually get a little bit of excess and I clamp it. So I grab a clamp and I just kind of go over top like that. And that way I know I'm not going to yank out the material as I'm working my way up. So I'm going to start in the bottom here and I have to kind of adjust it to make sure I can get my fabric clips on. Okay, so inside your kit, you're going to get these fabric clips. So the way these fabric clips are, they're these little metal clips. They're small ones and big ones. And kind of depending on where you're sticking it on the van, I try to use the small ones whenever I can, but sometimes the metal is like double thick and they don't work. So then you've got to use the bigger ones. So I'm going to pinch it over the fold line. I'm going to start with one of the small ones. And you can see I just get it on there and I push. I'm going to put another one. So I'm probably putting them about every like 14 inches to a foot. That one's a little snug, so it's kind of like tap it on. You want to be, the other reason you want to clamp the weather stripping is because you don't want the weather stripping to fall all the way down. Because then you have to start all over again. It's hard to get the weather stripping in the right place. So by clamping it in that corner, you're kind of making sure it can only fall, like only this will come off. Grab another small one, about a foot up. Let's give that a little tap. Now that I've got this basically all the way up right to about the corner, I'll do one more just before the radius starts to happen. So I'll put another big one in, probably like 2 or 3 inches down from where the bend starts to happen. And then I'm going to put the weather stripping. I'm going to put the weather stripping back on, starting from the bottom, working my way up. Just because as I make the corner, I have to take the weather stripping off the top, and I don't want it all to fall down. I'm going to just take my clamp out of the way for a minute. I'm going to kind of work this back in here. So you want to make sure you follow the radius down here, so get the weather stripping down into the corner, and then just kind of push it on all the way up. You'll notice on the fabric clips there is kind of these like little tangs that help grab it in place. Okay, and now that we're basically at the top, so yeah, now I'm going to take, I have to remove the fabric from here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take my other fabric, or my other big clamp, and I'm just going to clamp the weather stripping so it doesn't fall down. It's a pretty big pain in the butt if the weather stripping falls all the way down to get it back up in the right spot. So you can see I just take this, clip it there. So when I clip that there, this just kind of stops so now I can peel the weather stripping off of here, and it's not going to fall all the way down. Is I'm going to move this clamp below the section that I've already done. So I'm going to move it right there. So that way this keeps everything here. So now the only piece of this that can fall off is right there. And I'm not going to lose it all the way down the sides. Okay, so the corners are kind of the trickiest piece. So the way that you're going to kind of work this is, as you make the corner, put a clamp here. So I'm just kind of working with this area. So you see that the alignment gauge kind of stops for the corner, because you can't really do an alignment gauge on the corner, and then it starts again at the top. So what you're going to kind of do is you're going to use your fingers like this, and you're going to push in behind the flange in the back like this with the material. And you're going to, when you push that in and you go all the way around the corner like that, you can see how it starts to make the corner. You can kind of tell if you're doing it right because there's this hem here, and this should stay fairly parallel to the ground as you make your way around the corner. It might start to pull up a little bit, and that's okay. So what we'll do is we'll pinch our fingers in here. So I've got it pinched. I'm going to grab a fabric clip, a big one, and stick it, and then just keep working my way around the corner. So you do want this corner to be fairly tight and a lot of clips, because this is where your magnet's going to hang here. So this is kind of the spot that has the most force on it. So I would put another big one in here. Then you can see now as I come kind of across the top, I'm going to start to pick up the alignment aid again. So you can see how I've got that corner kind of coming around nicely. I'm going to move this clamp down a little bit so I can continue across the top, and I'll show you when I pick up the alignment aid again. Okay, so now I'm coming across to the alignment aid, and again, the stitching on the one that you get, you're going to want to get the stitching as close to this as possible. This is this is a sample here, so this one thing we had to move was the alignment aid a little bit. So you'll notice I'm not lining it up perfectly on here. I'm actually dropping it down about 1 centimeter from the stitch line, but on the one that you get, the alignment aid has been updated and fixed, so you should be able to just follow that along. Okay, so now that I'm like, 3/4 of the way across, I can actually start putting in the rubber kind of coming across here. So same as we did on the side, is you just kind of push it in place. I've got that there. So now I can move this clamp. I can move it from the side up to the top here. So now I'm going to move this clip in the corner because I need to work in the corner. Just move it down here a little bit. Just make sure I'm not clipping anything on the inside of the vehicle. So you always want to be, as you can see, just kind of like managing the weather stripping, because the worst thing you can have happen is the weather stripping falls off the top all the way down the sides and comes off, because it's very tricky to get in the proper orientation again. Okay, so same kind of thing as I'm just working my fingers into the weather stripping. I'm just going to drop that clamp so I can pull a little bit more off. And again, tucking it in, pinching it around the seam, grabbing that clip, and pushing it on. I'm actually going to come down to the bottom now and just make sure I've got enough, because sometimes as you bunch up that corner and you bunch up this corner, you haven't left yourself enough material down here. So I like to double check that. So again, what you want to see is you want to have enough material so this is coming very close to the bottom. So you can see I'm a little bit short of the bottom by maybe an inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to work a little bit of material around the top edge and give myself some more here. Let's see if I can pull a little. I was able to pull quite a bit off there. See if I've got a little bit of slack here. Alright, now let's see where we're at. So yeah, now I'm like very close to the bottom now. That's kind of where I want to be. So I'm actually going to put a clamp on that just to make sure I don't pull that material up anymore, because I want to make sure I've got it coming all the way to the bottom. So again, you're going to peel back the weather stripping here, and you're going to tuck the fabric in so I can pull it off to the clip there. On this edge, I actually, on the first pass, I often don't use any fabric clips. Because it has this curve in the van, it's kind of got this S shape. Sometimes it's a little tricky to get it right, so I find that I just work my way up, get it basically all the way in, and if I like the fitment, then I'll pull it off and stick some fabric clips on after that. So that's just the way that I kind of found works for me. Okay, so you can see I've got a bit of extra material here because I took it off on the bottom. So what I'll typically do is I'll just start back at this side and kind of, like, you can usually work it out in the corners. So if I kind of come into the corner here, I might have to go all the way down again, but that's okay. Sometimes you don't get the corners quite right. So it looks like I'm going to have to come all the way down to the bottom from the top, but that's okay. Corners all look good. I just like to go around the edge and just kind of make sure the weather stripping is seated everywhere. It's just kind of like in the corners especially. Push it in place. Make sure it feels in place. And then I like to close the door a couple times. I'm gonna get that clamp out of the way. Because when you close the door, that just kind of like squishes the weather stripping in place. So I'll just make sure I've got all the clamps off. I don't slam it or anything, I just kind of, the door still shuts properly. There we go. So that seems to be fitting properly. So now let's go, and I'm going to zip in the magnet tube here. All right, so once you've got the perimeter installed in the van, inside your kit you're going to see that you've got two pieces that should come together. One of them is the interior screen, which actually comes across with, which can come apart with Velcro across the top. And you've got the perimeter piece. So you're going to want to install them in the van at the same time. It's the easiest way to do it. So the magnet tube, that goes at the front of the van here. So you're going to line this up with the front. You're going to get the zippers lined in right here. And you're just going to start zipping it all the way around. I find it a little bit easier to zip from the inside of the van once I've got it started. So what I do is I stand on the step, just kind of work my way all the way around. Sometimes the perimeter is a bit sticky. There you go. Around the corner. Gotta come out of the van to finish it. And zip it all the way in place. And that's how you install it. So a few things to test right away is, so this magnet here, you can see it's not quite grabbing as fast as I would like it to. When you open the door, you kind of pull like this. It's grabbing pretty good, but you can see how the top is a little bit delayed from opening, from grabbing. It kind of like grabs the bottom, then the top. All that means is I need to pull that top like right in line with the magnet tube. I need to put a little bit more tension in that area. So I'm going to do that right now, and I'll show you how it makes a big difference. So again, I'm just going to put that guy down there, this guy right here, because I'm focused right in this area right above here. I just need to pull this off. And I just need to put my thumb, so right here, you see how I can kind of like pull more tension in there. So I need to just put a little more tension right there. So yeah, that pulled it up nicely. So I'm just going to put the weather stripping back on and test that. So let's see, give it a pull here. Perfect. You're going to notice in your kit, which I forgot to mention at the start, is you're going to get a piece of foam. This foam tube is optional. I like to use it because it makes rolling the screen way easier. So there's actually a foam tube right here on the bottom edge. So this comes apart, and then this, it's a tight fit, but it goes in. Slides in here. And then it gives you a nice finished edge at the bottom and something you can roll on. One sort of added step, which I'll show you a little bit later, is the reason we went with a foam that has that hole in the middle is because it's actually made so you can buy a piece of PEX, like PEX plumber's pipe. You can cut it to length and you can slide that in, and it gives this foam just a little bit of extra rigidity if that's what you're after. On my van, I do put the PEX pipe in, but it's not required. But just kind of an added thing, it just makes this a little bit more rigid. The side door screen rolls from the inside, so you roll it. So you come inside the van, and then you start rolling from the inside. Nice tightly along the foam. And then there's clips on the inside for these guys. So it just loops up just like this. Voila, and it's out of the way. So that's how that one installs. And then we have one other sort of fastener just to make sure that it is, you know, really solid along the top edge, because that's where all the force is coming from. So I'm gonna, actually don't have those straps right now, but I'm gonna go get them and we'll come back and show you those. Okay, so when you jump on the inside of the van, on a Sprinter van, you'll see that there's these like attachment points along here. They're number 10 sized. So these ones, I've already got them loosened, but you'll see we have these straps that hook to these loops on the top of the screen. So what we do there is you loosen this off, and then it doesn't come with a hole in the strap, but all you need to do is just like hold a lighter on a screwdriver or something like that and just kind of burn it through roughly at the length. Slide that over top of the bolt and then screw this back on. So there's one at the front and there's another one at the back here. So you can see it just goes up over top like that. And then that way the leading edge of the top edge of the screen is now like securely fastened to the vehicle. So it's not just being all held by the weather stripping. This particular van, it has like a trim piece that goes over top of this that kind of covers this all up. So I'm going to put the trim piece back on, but you would just tighten these up with a number 10. And then this is like securely stuck, fastened everywhere. So one other thing we have on this is we have these nylon tabs at the bottom. We put those on here so you could screw the actual screen down into your plastic step here. And again, that just gives it an extra secure kind of mounting point. So your kit's going to come with some of these, I think they're called truss screws, which are just little black screws. They'll be either Robertson or Phillips. And we're just gonna pull this down kind of tight like that. And then we're gonna screw in just like that so it stays, you know, nice and secure. So we're gonna do it here and at the front. At the front, there's one thing that you gotta be aware of, is that when you're closing the door, there's this big rubber stopper on the Sprinter van. So you've gotta kind of like go inside the van, close the door, and mark and kind of look at where you can screw in. So first step is to kind of just put the screw and just screw it through the nylon, just like so. This one I'm just going to kind of put it like, I don't know, an inch and a bit back and just get it down nice and tight. There you see, now it's snugged in there nice and tight, not going anywhere. Okay, so now we'll jump into the van. I'm going to close the door and you'll kind of see this area here. So I'll just close with me on the outside so you can kind of see as you watch this rubber stopper kind of come in. You'll see how it sticks back in here. So you kind of got to visually make a mark. Where can I install this? So it looks like kind of like right in there is going to be like my best bet. Grab one of the screws. Like so. So now we just want to make sure that the door does close. So once you're satisfied with the fit and you've got it opening and closing properly, you've got it so it looks centered in the opening. In some areas there's going to be a bunch of excess, so you'll see like in the top corner I've got a bunch of excess, and then along this side where the window does the door does this like S jog. You can cut it with scissors or you can use a utility knife blade. Just be very careful with the blade. And I don't cut it like tight. You can see here that, you know, there's like an inch showing. I would probably leave this. You know, I might trim this a little bit if I was being picky, but you could almost leave that so you can see once I get this started here, and you just kind of like Just kind of glide the knife down. You want to be careful that you're not cutting into the paint on the vehicle, so just, you know, very light. So yeah, I would just do that all the way around. So I kind of started halfway here, so I'm going to go up to the top, kind of work my way down. As you get more confident in it, you can take the cut a little tighter, but I don't mind leaving a little bit of an edge on there. The corners are a little tricky because the material bunches a little bit there, but just take your time. There we go. All nice and trimmed up. Again, I left about 1 inch all the way around. You can bring it in a little tighter if you want. So I'm just going to jump to the back and trim that one up. And then the screens are all done being installed.